Lord of Space. One with complete control over space. A Lord of Space would be the kind of person who seems incredibly distant from everyone. Like, they're always seemingly just too far away for communication to be easy. And for a Lord of Space, this can be an incredibly isolating experience. And because of this isolation, they tend to retreat into their own minds, often being incredibly creative or imaginative people, creating whole universes to think about in their heads. But the truth is that it's always up to them to decide just how distant they truly are. On the ability side of things, the Lord of Space would be an insanely strong combatant, able to casually break the laws of physics on a whim, and are able to cause untold levels of destruction. But with such destructive power comes the same in reverse. A truly mastered Lord of Space could create their own galaxies, or even micro-universes to live in and explore, an infinite bastion of creation and potential to rule over, as a Lord truly could. To say the possibilities are endless is quite an understatement in this regard. Whatever the case may be, while the Lord of Space have a long and possibly lonely road ahead of them, one thing is for sure: the prize at the end is more than worth the journey to get there. Rogue of Space. One who redistributes space. A Rogue of Space would be the type of person who loves to create and share with the world. They're incredibly adept at taking in multiple kinds of stimuli, from digital media to books to crafts, and with all their varied interests, they come off as an extremely well-rounded person. Though, because they're so varied in their hobbies and interests, they can tend to leave them quite busy and paradoxically isolated from the people they tried to hang out with in the first place. On the ability side of things, a Rogue of Space would have a very interesting suite of abilities. The chief one among them would be a sort of link among their party. This would allow for easy access for mass teleportation near and far, or even fast travel between people and locations. And if a Rogue of Space is good enough at this link, they could operate similar to Todo from Jujutsu Kaisen, rapidly changing places with allies and enemies alike for a disorienting fight for any enemy. Whatever the case may be, the Rogue of Space is a bit of a paradox of the Classpect. They're both alone and able to be around others with ease, and finding balance in that is the real challenge. Muse of Space. One with influence over space or through space. The Muse of Space is a canon Classpect held by Calliope, and as such we know a bit more about it. A Muse of Space would be someone who, in a similar manner to a Void player, is usually more of a loner, usually by circumstance rather than of their own want and need. Because of this, they could tend to spend a lot of time in their own heads for better or worse, coming up with fanciful scenarios ranging from daydreaming about what could be to longing for an escape and formulating a way out of their own isolation. On the ability side of things, a Muse of Space would be a masterfully subtle manipulator, able to tinker and change the fundamental forces of the universe to fit their needs and wants at any given moment. They would be able to cause the birth and death of planets, stars, and even whole galaxies. They're akin to dark matter. Their reach is invisible, but they're always there and a constant threat. And as long as you're within the same universe as them, you're really under their influence. Whatever the case may be, the Muse of Space is truly up there for one of the most potent Classpect pairings, even if one has to walk a lonely road to get there. Witch of Space. One who manipulates space. The Witch of Space is a canon Classpect held by Jade Harley, and as such we know a lot more about it. A Witch of Space would be someone who's incredibly imaginative, able to think big and move mountains to achieve what they can think up. Because they're such big thinkers, they can come off as incredibly silly or naive in their pursuits, but they simply refuse to be stopped by anything to achieve what they set their sights on. On the ability side of things, a Witch of Space would be an incredibly powerful combatant, and have access to all manner of space-based abilities. Growing, shrinking, and accelerating objects to insane speeds would be no issue for even a fledgling Witch of Space. But when the Witch of Space gains a bit more power over their Classpect, then they can truly take things to an insane level, creating black holes or even entire stars and using them as massive attacks in a fight. Whatever the case may be, the Witch of Space is an incredibly potent and versatile class, and having one alongside you is never a bad call. Page of Space. One who preserves space. A Page of Space would be someone who just needs a little push to really express themselves in the way they want to. They may struggle in larger groups of people and may need time alone more often to recharge by doing something they enjoy, whether that be art, music, or anything in a creative field similar to that. And they take solace in having the ability to express themselves in an easier medium. As the page class is characterized by the journey they take, the journey of the Page of Space is simple, learning to open up their circle a bit more, and learning to share what they like more openly with others. If they master that, then nothing is truly stopping them. On the ability side of things, a Page of Space would be pretty simple. They would have access to all basic space-aligned abilities, but where they could get a little wacky is in the scale of where they're able to affect things. A fully realized Page of Space may be able to grab and shrink entire galaxies, or even affect gravity in a way that would allow them to create black holes, or even other more grand cosmological phenomena. Whatever the case may be, the journey a Page of Space has to undertake may be a large task to handle, but with enough time and space, they would get exactly where they need to be. Bard of Space. One who invites destruction through space or using space. A Bard of Space would be someone who's off in their own world a lot of the time, literally and figuratively. They seem to just disappear randomly, checking in with people close to them from time to time in the most seemingly random places. Their natural wanderlust is fueled by an urge to be different, and that makes them make their own path in some way. And that path is usually a solitary one. Not that it bothers the Bard at all, but it can make friendships hard to keep if it feels like staying in touch with them can be a Herculean effort at times. On the ability side of things, a Bard of Space would be one of the wackier Classpect combinations. Just being near them can cause things to feel strange, like the laws of physics can spontaneously break down around them. One second a projectile is flying at them, and then the next everything becomes non-Euclidean geometry, and the projectile just loops back around to the center. Or maybe they reverse the magnetic poles of their planet on accident when god-tiering. Having access to this level of power can be dangerous, but that's what makes them so powerful. Whatever the case may be, the Bard of Space has one guarantee, that when shit hits the fan, they can always be counted on to increase the gravity of a situation. Prince of Space. One who destroys space or destroys with space. A Prince of Space would be the type of person who wants and enjoys being around others, but due to their own state of mind, can find it hard to make the first move to get there. They can come off as moody and distant when really they're off in a corner thinking about the best way to approach a group. They'll spend that time contemplating and waiting, until by the time they're ready to go, too much time has passed. Of course, the opposite can also be true in the same way. They could be an incredibly creative person and open to sharing that, but it could come off as a touch overbearing if they're jumping into every conversation head first. The mix of oversharing, undersharing, and yapping about their personal interests can come off a bit abrasive to others, and that can lead to driving people away as well. On the ability side of things, a Prince of Space would be an incredibly powerful combatant. In addition to the normal assortment of space-based abilities, they would essentially be able to teleport by destroying the distance between 2 points and making super effective wormholes for them and their party. Or even just affecting gravity to rain down meteors on a battlefield, and perhaps at the peak of their power, a black hole completely. The stars are the limit with this stuff. Whatever the case may be, the Prince of Space has a lot to offer other people, and once you get them in their orbit, they're locked in forever. Thief of Space. One who steals space. A Thief of Space would be someone who thrives in mostly social situations. They love being around people, getting to know them and exchanging ideas, though they may have some difficulty being alone. They may find it boring or even just hard to sit around with their own thoughts, and because of this, they tend to be the organizers of any friend group hangouts or meetups. This natural drive for community can also mean that the Thief has a wide network of people to call on, either to spend time around or just to gain inspiration for new creative endeavors. On the ability side of things, a Thief of Space would have access to all manner of space abilities, but in a more interesting way. They would be able to steal spatial properties from items, meaning they'd be able to steal the mass or height of an object to become as big as them, or even steal the space something occupies, which would allow them to teleport to objects or people at will. With the right weapon combination, this can allow them to teleport all over a battlefield with blinding speed. And like with all things space-based, creativity plays a big role in the Classpect's expression. Whatever the case may be, while a Thief of Space is a natural magnet for things around them, they'll always have the ability to draw people in even more if they want to. Seer of Space. One who sees space or sees through space. A Seer of Space would be someone contemplative and who loves sitting back and seeing the world go by. People watching in public or just hanging around friends engaged in something new and exciting are things they'd find fun. Not to mention they'd have a certain eye for crafts of all kinds. taking the time to learn and engage with all art forms, whether it be alone or with people they find would enjoy said thing right alongside them. On the ability side of things, a Seer of Space would be able to do pretty much what you'd expect. It would gain incredible vision if they didn't already have it. Visions of places and locations would flow through their mind as easy as a thought, and as such, they would make for a pretty good recon partner, able to help anyone sneaking in somewhere with full visual access of what's going on around them. Sort of like the Byakugan from Naruto, or even just having a minimap in a video game. Nothing short of a void player is really safe from their sight. Whatever the case may be, a Seer of Space would be a pretty chill person to have around, and you know they're always looking out for you as well. Heir of Space. One protected by space. An Heir of Space would often find themselves on their own, suddenly getting up to whatever it is that interests them. They don't really mind having solo days out, and in fact enjoy the peace and quiet sometimes. That's not to say that they don't enjoy having friends and companions, but don't be surprised if you don't hear from them every day, as they're probably off just enjoying some alone time or buried knee-deep in whatever hobby they love. On the ability side of things, an Heir of Space has some interesting applications of the aspect. They would have a keen sense of direction, and their spatial awareness would be pristine, allowing them to never get lost while out exploring. They may even possess the ability to grow and shrink themselves, much like Ant-Man, with no real need to think about the ramifications about how space would actually interact in that scenario. And in a fight, any projectile hurled at them would simply be redirected off target, making them a viable human shield if utilized correctly. Whatever the case may be, the Heir of Space has a lot of room to grow in, and the only thing stopping themselves is their own imagination. Maid of Space. One who serves space. A Maid of Space would be somewhat like a black cat. They enjoy hanging around your vicinity but don't need to be all up in your space to have a good time. They're content hanging out alone and just vibing. Like most space players, they tend to lean more towards the creative side of life, having a seemingly endless adoration for all art forms, and engaging their friends with various artistic endeavors that they would enjoy. On the ability side of things, a Maid of Space would have access to the full suite of space-based abilities. They would excel at being the getaway artist for their team, always having some way of escaping from a situation. It may sound mundane at first, but it would allow for a lot of very risky plans to be developed in fights. After all, if you always have a way to make it out of a situation, you may as well use your strongest attacks no matter what. Whatever the case may be, a Maid of Space is a quirky class, exceeding in things no one has ever thought up before. Knight of Space. One who protects space or protects through space. A Knight of Space would be a bit of a loner, not by choice but through life experience. They know they work well alone and as such can come off a bit mysterious to those they don't let in their orbit, but once you manage to make it there, they hold you close. They're dependable when you need someone to come around, and they know how to keep a cool head despite the gravity of certain situations, coming up with creative solutions and planet-shattering ideas seemingly from nowhere. On the ability side of things, a Knight of Space would have access to the full suite of space-based abilities. Growing, shrinking, and mild teleportation would all be within the Knight's purview. A particularly powerful Knight may even be able to bend space in such a way that attacks that try to hit them has to travel a further distance before actually connecting, causing them to redshift in a way, the same way that light does when traveling long distances in space, allowing for easy dodges for them and teammates on the front lines of battle. Whatever the case may be, for all the mystery surrounding a Knight of Space, they're not shy to speak up when needed, and when they do, they're usually right. Sylph of Space. One who fixes space or fixes through space. A Sylph of Space is a canon Classpect we see in the comic, held by Kanaya Miriam, and as such, we know a bit more of what a Sylph of Space's duties would include. As is typical for all space players, breeding the Genesis frog to create the new universe to inhabit would be something that they would be expected to do, which is quite literally making an entire universe. Pretty on the nose for a Sylph of Space. Aside from this, the Sylph would have to be someone incredibly creative, whether it be through fashion, art, or any other outlet. Space players are creativity to their core. The Sylph may try their best to bring that creativity out of others, encouraging them to open up and feel the energy of the universe flowing through them. On the ability side of things, a Sylph of Space would have access to all manner of space-based abilities, growing, shrinking, and even limited teleportation if properly mastered. The Sylph would be adept at coming up with creative ways to bend and warp space around them, causing all sorts of mischief for enemies to decipher, and allowing their team to have creative solutions to problems as well. Whatever the case may be, a Sylph of Space would be a creative problem solver, going through unconventional routes to fix issues, fussing and meddling with everything along the way. Mage of Space, one who knows space and is haunted by it. A Mage of Space is a tricky pairing to nail down. Mages are so talented at what they do, yet just can't seem to shake that one inkling in the back of their mind. A Mage of Space would be someone very, very creative, able to see the big picture and come up with fantastical ideas and creations on the spot, but they may have a little bit of trouble executing them. Every once in a while though, when they break through that wall blocking them, things turn out incredibly well for them. On the ability side of things, they get a bit easier, but not much. Space is something that would be fluid to them. With an understanding of how it's flowing around them, they would never need a compass or a map, as their spatial awareness would just kick in and be on point all the time. The usual fare of space powers would apply too, growing, shrinking things to some extent, and perhaps an especially potent Mage of Space may have figured out the secrets of portals, allowing for long distance travel instantly. Whatever the case may be, a Mage of Space is an extremely creative individual, capable of many unique and interesting possibilities. Just as soon as they get over their roadblocks, of course.